So, welcome to the Naked Ambition podcast, Lee Duncan. It is wonderful to have you here. How are you going this morning?
I'm doing great.
Beautiful. So, welcome to and thanks to everyone that's joined us live on the show this morning. We're so excited to have you in here with us. We're talking to Lee Duncan this morning, who is the Enterprise Design Sprint Leader at IBM, based out of North Carolina. Lee has had an incredible career, over 20 years at IBM. He's helped support an experimental mode of working and has actually helped kick off design sprints as a method and a way of working at IBM. But it doesn't stop there. He was also recognised this October for an International Stevie Award for Miracle, which is a not-for-profit. Chainyard and IT People Corporation, and who together created a new blockchain technology for disaster relief. So it'd be awesome to hear a bit more about that. So Lee, welcome. Tell us more about you and the incredible work that you're doing over there at IBM.
Sure. So yeah, I've been working at IBM for a very long time. In fact, I can hardly remember my first day. I'm going on 21 years. And so I was born at IBM. And actually before that, I worked at GE for 1 year.
Cool.
So all I know are large companies.
Incredible. So what brought you to the work that you're doing at the moment? So actually, I want to dive into, talk to what is, for the benefit of all of us, what is an experimental office mode or office way of working at IBM?
So for the most part, I question everything. I question the work that I'm doing, the meetings that I have, the methodologies that I use. And so everything is experiment. As we say at IBM, every day is a prototype.
Cool. And tell us about what the work that you're doing with the design sprints over there.
So I'm running design sprints where we come together about once a quarter.
Yeah.
And we basically focus on AI.
Wow. Okay. So you're looking for everything you can around AI at IBM. So all of the opportunities, any problem that you can solve using it. Can you tell us a bit more? Are you allowed to share sort of some of what that project is involving?
Yeah. I'm trying to think through what I can tell you.
Yeah. Cool.
So we run typically small sprints between 5 and 7 people, and we focus on anything transformation.
Okay. Anything transformation, anything AI.
Mm-hmm.
So IBM's pretty famous for Watson. So you started some of this thinking pretty early on. How has that evolved with some of the work that you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, so in transformation, we do a lot of work taking a look at the tools we use inside IBM as opposed to external facing.
Yep.
And as a result of that, we take a look at the Watson tool set and we try to figure out how we can infuse Watson. What are some of the ways we can improve our current tools? So I would say the majority of our sprints are how can we add AI? How can we infuse Watson? How can we infuse blockchain? And a number of tools that IBM supports and has created.
So I think what Watson, remind me, has probably been around at IBM, I mean, in its current form, in the re-release for 15, 20 years? Yep. So it's probably been around for most of your lifetime there. How do you deploy it? I don't know, there's enterprise, external facing Watson, and then there's what you're doing internally. Can you give us some examples of some of the things that it's solving for and doing?
Yeah, so we have something called code patterns. And code patterns are typical ways of applying AI and applying Watson. So we try to make everyone aware of the APIs that are available. We have a lot of internal education to make sure how people can have a cognitive mindset. They can understand and appreciate all the different capabilities, and they can think through how to infuse Watson into their work. A lot of people think that what they're up to and what they're working with is not a good candidate for AI, but in fact it is. And most of the time it's just a factor of them not appreciating the easy ways of infusing AI and Watson.
What is an example of that? What's something that people kind of ignore and don't think that AI would be helpful where it is a really obvious one?
Yeah, I would say that for the most part, it reduces duplicate work or entering information. There's a lot of things we do over and over, and we think it's necessary, and it can't be done with AI. But a lot of the serious efficiencies occur in the back office work, and just the duplicate information. Those types of things. Most people, when they think about AI, they think about deep computing, or they think about quantum, solving some really complex math problem, or coming up with a cure for cancer. But usually the majority of it is automation and robotics, and just automating rote tasks, things that people do over and over. I know that's not an exciting answer, but if we can spend less time, is, for example, sellers putting information over and over, where it can anticipate those moves and the information that's being put in, it's able to bring up client information, etc. Then that's time where they could actually be solving new problems and coming up with new ideas.
Okay, so eliminating that automation. And how far along are would you say internally, culturally, you're pretty sophisticated at IBM at that now?
Yes, I mean, I know, obviously I'm going to say this because I work for IBM, but and by the way, all of these comments are my opinion. They don't necessarily reflect that of my employer. So if I say something crazy, it's on me. Yeah. But yeah, we've been at it for a long time, and we like to think that we're a leader in AI. So I would say what we're working on right now is just making AI available to the masses, allowing for non-technologists to be able to apply and understand AI. Yeah. I think that's a huge thing. And as I mentioned, there's a common belief that you have to be applying it to something really special, but in managing very basic tasks, I think that's huge. And to be able to do it at scale, I think is a huge thing. We have several 100,000 employees, and we work with a lot of business partners. Yeah. And to be able to manage things at tasks, I think is important.
So I think staying on that and thinking about, rolling things out at scale as an organization, and obviously you would have been a huge part of this. So you're working out in North Carolina, which is the biggest base of IBM in North America. Yep. IBM has been probably the leader of design-led thinking, or one of the leaders of design-led thinking internally for a really long time. Be a starter of that. What does that look like internally? How does that manifest in the culture? How do you keep that up, I suppose, is the question.
Yeah. So we are not shy about saying that we want to be the largest design thinking organization, the most human-centered. In fact, I think there have been numerous articles written on that, not shying away from that. Very bold papers written on how we're trying to do that and how we want to scale design thinking. But I can remember 7 to 10 years ago, we weren't doing design thinking as much. In fact, I was involved with Agile. And what I was focusing on at that time was work called Model Office. And Model Office, that is where you come in and you try to apply some Agile methodology to transform things. I was asked to do that, and I was asked to come in and transform security, some work in security and acquisitions. And they knew that I was a bit of a wild duck, another IBM term. Someone that thinks differently. And they said, well, come in and try to transform this department with Agile. And it worked. They liked the fact that, back to where I started, I question everything. I question what I do, why I do it. And I was questioning the ceremonies and the practices, why we're having meetings, why certain metrics were being collected, why we were doing the work we were doing. Was it human-centered? And it was very successful. I was asked to do that a few more times. Anyway, the reason why I mentioned that is because they came to me and said, well, there's this new thing out, and it's called, of course, it had been out a while, but not so well practiced at IBM. they said, well, you're really into transformation. You think differently. Why don't you explore design thinking? And I had the opportunity to go to our Austin, Texas site, actually the flagship location studio for design. And I was able to go to the boot camp, and I learned everything about it. And I think the day after I arrived, they came out with the Infinity logo. And the Infinity logo shows the three major steps for IBM, which is observe, reflect, and make. And that was great. And we had the website. So I was able to meet a lot of the designers there. And since then, they've gotten huge. And as I think the goal of that first location was to develop the practice, to really get good at it, and be able to scale the practice from its place of origin there. So there was culture being created, there was a practice being created, there were artifacts, all the rest. And after that, everything kind of grew. And the Austin site was known as the origin. But what was required at that time, since there wasn't a really strong design culture, was that Austin site was having to lead a lot of the design work because no one else had the experience. So anyway, it was a lot of work to get that started. It wasn't so organic at the beginning, but after that, it grew. In fact, now I think we have somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 designers, classically trained designers. And it's a really big deal. And a few years after that, we opened up something which we refer to as Enterprise Design Thinking, EDT. And that is an online series of coursework where you can get badged up. Inside of IBM, we're able to see who has the qualifications and skills for design. So when you're starting a project, you can basically select what it is, what skills you need, what experience you need, and Enterprise Design Thinking, the badges, et cetera, are able to pre-qualify individuals. And we also offer that to the outside. And last thing I'll say is now, and I'm still in selling mode now, is that we also sell it as a practice. So we've gotten so confident in it, and we've seen the results that now we're external facing. We had a Forrester study that we completed, or I guess we supported. We I don't know. We asked to have initiated. Have it written. And that's out there on the web. You can see that as far as the ROI of design. And one other thing I'll mention is with transformation, we find that it's not usually the technology that leads transformation, although that's the default way of thinking, is the culture. And IBM Design Thinking has created that culture.
So interesting, because coming back to talking about, you're saying 5,000 to 7,000 people now trained up, are able to actually execute at that sort of practice level on projects. They're badged up, so you know who to bring into projects. It's the dream of so many organizations to be able to have that, have that capability internally, but also have that visibility of where that actually sits so that you can bring people in at the right time. So that in practice, it sounds incredible, but in practice, does it work as effectively as it sounds? Or do you run into kind of challenges sometime in terms of not being able to get the right people? What does that look like?
Well, I would say that the skill sets required are different in some areas. For example, in Austin, I would say it's deep craft, where visual design is quite, and again, this is just my opinion. Visual design, I think, is important. I think there's quite a bit of front-end design skills and expertise, and I would say there's also deep research and design. I would say there's design research capabilities there. Where in other areas, they're doing a lot more building. So being able to storyboard and rapid prototype and be really good with those tools, I think is important, making it real. And so, I would say it's different depending on the organization you work with and what are their requirements and what is their unique culture, but that has been my experience.
And tell us where design sprints fit. So you mentioned 7 years ago, the organizations were going from agile. We're on the journey of saying let's use more human-centered design. Let's bring this into more projects. Now we're doing more design sprints. And sometimes we hear like the purists out there, like we know there is a difference between design sprints. We lean on some of the methods, but we don't use everything. How has the design sprint method grown internally at IBM, and how have you played a part?
Sure. And let me actually just add also, because this kind of weaves well into the story I was telling. Yeah. So back to enterprise design thinking, I started getting really good at enterprise design thinking, but even then I was questioning, well, can I add on to this? I want to make sure I'm always outward looking. And that's when I came across design sprints. And I saw what was happening at Google Ventures. And for me, a lot, as far as the way I was approaching design, it was multi-month and everything was kind of fragmented. But I was observing that within 5 days, they could get people in a room, they could align on the problem, do ideation, prototype it, and do user testing. And I said, well, I need to do this. I need to figure it out. And then I started running some experiments with enterprise design thinking and also total pure GV method. But because IBM was very focused on enterprise design thinking, I wanted to create a unique sandbox to explore that more. And actually, we created one of the few internal design agencies at IBM, which we call Design to Deliver, also known as D2D. Yeah, and in there, that's where I also had license to explore, as long as it was yielding value and it was elevating the group and the culture, I was able to experiment with it. So it was basically a sandbox. And that's when I started doing design sprints and modifying design sprints. We recently came up with a AIoT design sprints. So artificial intelligence of things.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so we call it cyber physical sprints. So we developed that in there. And I would say if I was in other areas which were really rooted in a specific practice, I probably wouldn't have had the flexibility to think outside those lines. And that's why I really appreciate the fact that we're be able to do that in D2D. But we've been running a lot of sprints. I have run probably somewhere between 100 and 200 sprints, and a fair amount of those have been virtual. But there are all different types of sprints we run. Sometimes we run just a straight iteration sprint, which is we just want to improve on something. Other times it's a concept sprint where we're testing something. And then we also do longer sprints, like sprint quarters, that Stefan from Design Sprint Switzerland came up with. And those are longer sprints, and those involve multi-teams. And I would also add that since we've been doing so many sprints, people now believe in us. And where we were maybe at the beginning just doing sprints on designing the color of a button, now we're really into the AI side of things. So the sprints are longer, they're deeper, they're deep tech, and they're more, they're more technical. So we have to bring experts in, and with that process, just the observing and understanding can take many days, as opposed to a classical design sprint may only be a half a day or so to have experts come in.
Can you talk to us a little bit more about those quarter sprints? So you're talking about where there's a big challenge, something that's going to take a lot of time to tackle, we need more people involved. Is AI one of those examples? Are they the topics that you need to tackle over the quarter?
Yeah, so you have a bunch of issues. One is the technology is so sophisticated and sometimes bleeding edge that no one person knows it. So just in that one domain space, you may require 3 to 10 experts. Whereas in a normal design sprint, you would have 1, 2, 3, or 4 experts. But sometimes we have to bring in a bunch of people. And by the way, because we're in deep tech, we deal in multi-technology. So it could be AI, it could be blockchain, it could be robotics and automation, on and on and on, and really focused on cloud, because we want to be AI and we want to be cloud. We're super clear now. We're always doing a lot of things, but now for clarity's sake, we want to be a cloud company and we want to be an AI. So anyway, the point of me saying that is not only are in any one of these domain spaces complex, requiring multiple experts, but they usually have multiple series of technology. So we have to bring all those individuals in, make sense of, do a lot of sense making, give enough time to them, also be able to capture it and make sure it's useful for the sprint. It takes a while. So the structuring the sprint, being really purposeful in who we bring in, the timing of it. Many times these are experts, so they're just not hanging around their laptop waiting for me to ask if they'll show up. So you have to, the scheduling is so many things that are really difficult, and that's why it takes a while. And we really have to be diligent to make sure we've listened deeply. Mm-hmm. And we also need to make sure that we're doing enough pre-work in regards to the understanding the user, bringing the user. So there's lots of complexities of understanding and knowing and observing and reflecting.
Mm. So many questions in that. The first one is around how, I saw you actually post on Twitter the other day, you were saying, I'm coming up with 12 of the best research questions that everyone needs to ask. These are going to be the ultimate questions. So what is that? How do you balance that, just enough research question for each sprint before you go in? How do you and the team kind of tackle that?
Well, it's hard. There was, I think there's some articles on that discuss the importance of, we all think about brainstorming ideas, and of course we know better than to brainstorm solutions for the beginning. But what the real interesting aspect of that is brainstorming questions. People need to be brainstorming questions as much as they're brainstorming ideas, because you only have a few opportunities to find things out. And if you don't ask the right questions, you've missed it. And by the way, if you think of the question when you're in the shower the next day or laying in your bed in idle time, you're just going to be kicking yourself. Regret is incredibly painful. And so that's why it's really important to, as part of your process, have sessions that are strategic, they're intentional, they're structured, they have a deliverable on coming up with questions and make sure everyone agrees to them, and we're not asking duplicate questions, and also they're aligned with the long-term goal, the thing we want to, the intent. So having good questions, never missing a moment, never missing that opportunity to ask questions, I think is really, really, really important.
Yeah. But are you also bringing that in, or are you talking specifically about asking those questions within the sprint group that you've got? Are you talking about pre-research? Like, obviously it differs, but what's your kind of advice there?
Yeah, so we would think of it as design sprint 0,
good,
or whatever, sprint 0, design thinking 0, where the team, once we've established the team, and by the way, we've developed a team RACI. So we try to figure out who's accountable, who's responsible. We do all that. That's all part of the intention. And once you have that team, then you establish some facilitation method to come up with questions. So we do that as a team. And we try to make sure everyone's involved, because we find a beginner's mind of even those that aren't close to it, ask the best questions. So I think that's really important. And then just enough research, or just enough understanding, I think that's huge. So we look at Erica Hall and her work. As I said, we have an army of design researchers at IBM. We have dedicated Slack channels, and just go in there and surf around for a while, and pretty soon you're going to feel like you're feeling pretty dangerous. You have enough information, knowledge. So anyway, we take a look at that, and also what I've been working on is establishing a kit. One we can empower and give agency to the technologist to ask the right questions, become user-centered. So that lightweight kit of 15, 20 questions, universal questions, to give to them allows them to be effective. They don't have to be dependent on us as designers.
Is that kit available to the public?
Not yet, but it might be.
Okay.
It might be.
Stay tuned, everyone. I think there'll be a few people wanting to get their hands on that kit. So let's stay in there as well. There's a really interesting comment you made about, the getting really good at modifications to the sprint. That's so much a part of it. We've all read the Blue Book, or a lot of people have starting at that point of understanding that the 5 originally, or the 4-day GV design sprint, and then in different organizations, it's being modified for different purposes, including one big one that you're in now, which is the Global Virtual Design Sprint by Robert Scrobe and the team. My question there is, any advice that you could give to people listening to this around making decisions about modifications? How do you get really good at that? What are some of the lessons that you've learned over time, or even maybe some of the failures?
Yeah. Okay, so first I would say, as Jake Knapp writes in his book, you need to get a lot of reps in. So for example, if you're doing enterprise design thinking, do a lot of it. Make sure you understand the foundation, observe other people, do a ton of ride-alongs until you know it cold. For design sprints, the same thing. Do a lot of them. You need to get what I refer to as experience hours. Experience hours is like flight hours, right? They just don't let anyone fly a plane. You need to suffer a little bit, make some mistakes in the moment. Yeah. Those types of lessons are the most enduring. So do a lot with the classic approach where you have it ingrained. You have it ingrained. It's muscle memory. Once you have that down and you've been successful, then I would start off each event with thinking, why are we here? What do we want to achieve? And making sure that you need to have a meeting. Sometimes you need to not have a meeting. There's articles written on this as well. When to sprint and when to do something else. There's a lot of really smart articles on that. So if you need to be there and you understand the intent, you align in the intent, then you think about the methodology that you're using. And if the intent requires, after you consider universe of methodologies, if the intent requires certain things to be embellished, you need to do that. And what I've been speaking to over the last 10 minutes are deep tech, but there can be all different types of things. Sometimes, there are branding sprints, there are research focused sprints, there are performance UX sprints. They have different requirements, and you can't run it each sprint the same way. And when you have remote sprints, you can't be together that long, and you may not be able to interact in the same way. And you really need to think about the needs to deliver. And I think it's also really important to remember that everything we do is in the service of delivering that thing, right? We don't get points for hanging out. It's all about delivering the thing. And I think of it as like, if we were to run a marathon, we did tons of training, and then I fell down a foot before at the end. Sure, my family would be impressed with me because they're required to, but you didn't finish. You DNF. You don't want to DNF on your sprint. And you don't want to DNF on your deliverable. So you need to think thoroughly about what methodologies are required, which ones are not, when to meet, how to gather, how long, who are the right people. You have to navigate the personalities as well. Sometimes you need to have productive troublemakers. Sometimes, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll have to anticipate the culture, and you have to, I'm trying to think of the name of something we invented, which I should know. For some reason, it's escaping me. But we basically have these, it'll come to me tomorrow morning. We've invented a role. We've invented a role in our design work where they are troublemakers. They're actually licensed and permission to ask questions. And we say that up front, like this person right here, they're going to be running forensics all through this whole thing and asking questions that are going to be painful for you. But by the way, the stuff we're not talking about is the stuff we need to talk about. Anyway, so that's a really complex way of saying, get a lot of practice, get rooted in the practice up front, and don't look around, have blinders on. And once you can do it cold, in your sleep, you can explain it to someone, you can explain it to your partner, and they understand it, then start really thinking through, what does this deliverable need? How can I navigate the best way to get there? And you throw it all into the processor of, well, how much time do I have to run the sprint? How long is the decider available? When are these experts available? What is the timeline of it? How much can we travel? What fidelity prototype do we need? What is the format of that prototype? How do we tie out with the stakeholders? How do we communicate with them? It just goes in there. Right now, when I say it, it's starting to give me a headache immediately. But you have to think through those items. Start with the basics. Process the need. Make sure you hit the deliverables so you can deliver on time, and then pick that method, and then you deviate.
It's so good. I love that. we've got to get to the end. This is about, like, no one cares about the process. No one cares about how you got there or what it took to get through it. They just want to see that value at the end. That is your job.
Yes.
So
And sometimes when I want to be really provocative, I'll say to people, I'd run, literally today, if I saw a new methodology written on the side of a dumpster and I thought it was better, I would use it tomorrow. So I'm open and up for anything. Yeah, very outward. And that's also why I'm really active on social media is, and there's a quote, I think by Gary Vaynerchuk. And it's something like, I'm in the business of changing my mind. And that's really what I like to think I am in as well, is I'm in the business of changing my mind. I'm in the business of destabilizing my worldview of, wow, I can't believe I thought that was right. Or I am doing it entirely wrong. And I have to separate. You have to be, you have to be able to kill your ego from time to time. And strangely, I do enjoy that, destabilizing my worldview, ego blows. I'm good with it if I can deliver better.
I can't believe you can't remember the name of who that agitator or troublemaker is, because I think that sounds like you've
I got it.
Explain that a bit. You got it?
I think it's innovation villain.
Oh.
Innovation villain, I believe, is what we call it. And it's we haven't come up with a hat for it, but we usually call them out. We may even give them a name tag or something where people will not forget. And it's really interesting from a psychological perspective what happens when you permission certain acts. Totally. And there's some acts that need to happen because we don't, from a culture-wise and just being human, we're respectful. And everyone wants to be employed. You want your badge to work the next day. Yeah. And so you don't want to make anyone upset. So when you permission very strategic roles, especially ones that can unearth problems, that is very, very therapeutic.
I know someone listening who's going to love that. I know an absolute innovation villain. They're the best. Let's stay on people for a little bit. Like, who do you look for? You've had, across your career, you can see here there's a big pattern of probably not really asking for permission, just doing things. But then obviously that, you're also working in an organization that believes in this, and there is a lot of trust. No doubt you've had to push some boundaries, but there's a lot of trust. How do you build teams, or what do you look for in the people that you want to bring in? Not even necessarily to a sprint, because sometimes that's predetermined depending on, or you've got limited choices depending on what you're doing. But I'm just talking about your teams. What are the characteristics that you look for in people to do this kind of work?
Yeah. So as you were talking about a minute ago, I definitely am more of asking for forgiveness type of person. Right? I just get after it. And I would say that's probably the type of people that I look into, that I want involved with the sprint. They're individuals that are courageous. You really need a lot of courage. You need to be able to step out and say, I think we should do it this way, have a point of view. And that's also why I really, really respect people that have a point of view, when it's wrong. Yeah, I'll follow people with a strong point of view because it's provocative and makes people think. So I like people that have a point of view. They're willing to put themselves out there. A quote that I heard not too long ago was as far as skill sets. This is also against the grain of everything you would hear anywhere else. But the quote is, for skills, you want it an inch wide and a mile deep. We always speak, when we're in public, we always say we want T-shaped skills, right? Everyone should have T-shaped skills, as we say in public. But I look for people that have an inch wide, mile deep. I want them to be remarkable in their craft, like to be thinking about it. They're following people. They're running experiments. They are really pushing it. I like people that are pushing it. And I'm also obsessed with productivity, being able to deliver. It's not enough just to know, even though it definitely gets me interested, noticing individuals.
Yeah.
So those things, you really need to be obsessed with delivering, execution, and your craft. Those are the things that I look for. And then also, I think IDEO started, one of the reasons why IDEO started, which was, of course, world famous design agency, and continues to be that way, it's still highly relevant, is I think the origin story of IDEO was they just want to work with their friends.
Mm.
That was the reason, right? Well, we started this company because we want to work with our friends. And I think there's something there. Something there. And a lot of times in my sprints, I just want to work with my friends. I want to be able to say what I'm thinking out loud. I want there to be psychological safety, which doesn't require 80% of the sprint to bring out. I want people to come to work as themselves, not with the work face, not with a veneer. And I would say that's huge for me. You really need to be low ego. You need to be low ego dissolved, highly skilled, focused on one thing, can execute amazingly well, probably need to have a sense of humor, and know that I'm going to probably act a little crazy because that's my style. I'm very energetic, and I ask for things that are usually impossible.
That's a good one. So you're role modeling some of that to, for the sorts of people that you want. It sounds like you role model that in your teams. What are other ways that you can influence the culture?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost, I try to model it. You got to see it to be it, and I try to act the part. I try to be transparent and honest and authentic, and occasionally, I don't want to say emotional, but I mean, I can express emotion if I'm upset or disappointed, and that's a different one. People don't do that, right? Leading through vulnerability, I think, is a huge one. And then another thing I say, which isn't done a lot within the enterprise, is I say, I don't know. I don't know the answer. Actually, can you help me with that? That does not happen a lot. So I need people that are they're, when they know what they're talking about, they're aware of it. And we are aware of it. And when they know they don't know when they do what they're talking about, I need them to share that, not to lead us in a wrong direction.
Yeah. So no bullshit you're talking about. We don't need that.
Yes.
The truth, let's be honest, if we don't know. I've got so many more questions for you. I'm just scribbling them down, and I've thrown out the original script that we had here with some questions, and we're going to get into them, keep going. But the beauty of us being live is that we've also got some participants on the line as well. So I want to, for anyone who's listening and is desperate to ask Lee a question, type it in to the little Q&A function here as well, and we can make sure that we get that question answered. So you actually tweeted something the other day that was from Ryan Holiday, who's written some awesome books, like The Obstacle is the Way is one of them. That's my absolute favourites. And he said, all you need every day are a few small wins. And this is related to, I think, a new book that he's got out. And you just said there that you're obsessed with productivity. Can you tell us, like, what are some of those everyday habits or behaviours that have changed your life?
Yes. Yeah. So first of all, I recognize the dangers of task switching, always switching from different tasks. It's really a problem. That's a problem for our attention. It's anti-deep work. You're not going to do anything meaningful that way, and you're going to be tired out. So I really like monotasking. And I believe I've also developed a couple mural canvases that focus on this, where I try to have one major thing that I'm going to do each day, one major thing that I absolutely must accomplish, and it's going to be high value. And then I have a couple medium-sized things and 3 small things. I do that in the morning before I begin anything. And sometimes if I'm feeling low energy, I'll just write the big thing, right? It's the journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. And if I accomplish that one big thing, I'm good. So keeping it simple. And I also think about, in my mind, I have this grid, which I'll refer to as, well, I kind of think about or visualize an impact grid, which is the feasibility and impact of everything. So in the morning, I'll basically diverge and do basically a solo note and vote. I'll do 3 to 5 to 10 things, write them down, and I'll self-edit. And then from there, I'll have the one thing, or and maybe the middle things and the small thing. And that's how I do it. And I try to hold myself accountable. And a lot, and another thing is, I, through my own self-talk, hold myself accountable for that one thing. And I'll say, look, you may not be feeling great today, but you need to get this, out. You need to do it. And then if I can simplify my focus to that one thing, and I don't make it so difficult where I can come up with excuses not to, I'm usually able to deliver on it. But you know, there's always a voice in my head that's trying to talk me out of it. Yeah. And so I just need to focus on that one thing. And if I go into laser mode, as I think is discussed in Make Time by Mr. Jake Knapp and friends, if I go into laser mode, etc., focus mode, then I'm able to deliver on that thing, and I'll never feel bad because I usually accomplish that one thing. But usually that's the way I work.
So grabbing that, I love the impact grid. I think that's absolutely gold for something in the morning. And just that, that concept of eat the frog, eat the biggest thing that you can do in the morning, the toughest thing. Tell us how have you been impacted by everything that's going on at the moment and the change of work environment? Has this become, like, what has that done for your productivity habits? Is there anything else that you've needed to introduce? So you just spoke about that battle that we all have, which is, you know, sometimes our unconscious is actually stopping us from doing the thing that is most important. It's like you're afraid of your own power potentially. So how do you overcome that at the moment? Has it been harder?
Definitely has been harder. I would say my personality is to run triage whenever there's a problem, which I'm not sure is healthy or suggested. But I usually, if something really bad happens, and I would say I've been this way as a kid. I don't know why, but when bad things happen, I go into business mode. And probably later I process it and I'm able, I'm becoming more expressive. So ever since this came on, obviously I was looking out for my family. I'm looking out for my parents, looking out for people I work with. And I just go into this serious clinical triage mode. But all the while I'm thinking to myself, because sometimes I can be a little serious with this needs to be done, whatever. And other people may not be responding in that same way. They may need time. They maybe can't even be on camera, etc. IBM came up with actually I'm going to call a social contract. It's out there on the internet. I think everyone can have access to it and even share it, where we agree that we're going to be sensitive to individuals, and sometimes you don't want to be on camera, and on and on and on. So I looked at that and I reflected on it, and I really tried to contemplate, how should I be right now? What should my tenor and tone be? How forceful and aggressive should I be in regards to seeking out these tasks and these deadlines? Can I expect people to respond to me within a certain period of time? Should I downgrade my schedule and my ambitions for what I want to deliver? So I'm processing all those things. But I do tend to approach things in a very, we'll call it semi-scientific clinical mode, which is robotic. And I need to be self-aware of how that is. And we've all heard of emotional IQ, which is having a elevated perception of what's going on around us. And now bring it back to, well, how does that tie into the state of work that we have? Is I'm trying to develop VIQ, which is virtual IQ.
Yes, so cool.
What can I observe psychographically with how people are responding to me? Where's their expression? Where are their eyebrows? Are they leaning in? Are they leaning back? Where's their tone of voice? Where's their resting face? All those things I think about and try to process. Where are they at? Are we engaged right now? Are they tracking? Are they motivated? Are they upbeat? Are they happy? Are they sad? And especially in a work environment and working for a large corporation, people don't like to tell you they're sad or upset. So anyway, I'm trying to be on high alert for that. I'm observing and reflecting and processing the cues, the social cues. They're there, and that's how I'm handling this moment.
so much in there. I think we were just having a conversation the other day, actually, with a couple of our partners about that missing piece that we haven't got at the moment, which is, you know, the ability to actually, well, I think we don't even realize how much we're feeling other people's energy when we are face to face with them, you know, and all of these things that your subconscious is picking up about how that person feels. And there's absolutely no doubt it's just harder to do in the virtual environment. So I love that idea of VIQ. I think that's really got something. Like, just even, you know, we can only see this much of each other, but what can we even pick up just from that view?
Yeah, virtual is definitely not as data rich.
Yeah.
You can only imagine all the different bits of information that are coming at you when we're in the right environment, tone, everything.
Yeah.
I even, you know, when I'm in a work environment, I even try to look at how people are positioned in a room. You tell a lot about how people are positioned in a room, how they're positioned at a table, what is their posture, all different, and also back to forensics of a meeting. As the conversation is going, who are they communicating with? Are they asking questions? Are they inserting themselves? And you can get a lot of data just by observing those traits, and try to also manage and optimize the room based on that. Who should you be communicating with? What is the power structure, the invisible power structure that is in this room? And that's how you can manage as you can engineer conversations that way. Yeah.
So interesting. Tell us more about Lee, more about you and who you are. What is this is actually a 0 to 1 question, that Peter Thiel question. What is something that almost nobody believes or agrees with you on, that you believe is fundamentally true?
I believe every moment, most people just have difficulty with this. I believe every moment is one. I think we should take advantage of every single moment. Every moment we're making a decision, and every day we make hundreds, thousands of decisions. And our life and the trajectory is that accumulation of decisions. So we shouldn't miss a moment. Just in the same way, I'm going to say something, Leeism coming at you, is just for example, meals and food. Food actually is information. It's data. Every time we eat a meal, we're putting data into our body. It tells us to upregulate or downregulate gene expression. We're either improving our health or reducing our health with every bite of food, right? You can turn on master gene expression regulators that control our immunity, that reduce the chance of getting cancer. We can improve BDNF, brain-derived neurotropic factor, by the different types of foods we eat. With every bite, we manage our entire everything, our productivity, our cognition, our future. So I'm hyper intentional about every moment, every decision, every conversation, who I'm talking with. And other people disagree with me. They say, well, just live your life. You're overthinking this. But for me, especially with things I've experienced in my family, I know time really is precious. We totally don't consider the time value of your life, the opportunity available, and we need to take advantage of everything. And there are no throwaway hours for me. Yeah. Every moment I'm doing it to live life in the fullest way. And the gift that I have received through living thus far is to recognize that.
Love it. It's goosebump stuff. Tell us, has this been amplified by sort of what's been happening recently, or is this what you've always believed?
Well, it's from what has happened recently, but I can tell you when I was young, some of my family members had some medical problems, and I, through many holidays, I was in the hospital next to my family members, talking them through it, keeping them company, and I just noticed how important it is to value every moment, and life moves fast. It moves really fast. And if it's time with your family members, or if it's spending time doing what you want or what you need to do, you need to take advantage of it. It really happens fast. And that's definitely a gift that I received through that struggle. And I would say light trauma of those difficulties, those were lessons I learned, but it really has helped me out a lot to appreciate everything and appreciate every conversation that I have in every moment.
Yeah, well, thanks for sharing all of that with us. And tell us what's next for you. So that's, you're collecting a lot of data day to day.
Yes.
Doing some pretty incredible work. What does the future look like for Lee? What are you really excited about at the moment?
I would say what I'm really excited about is, I'm going to go back to advertising mode, is IBM is, we're really focused on cloud. We of course, made a pretty major acquisition with Red Hat. I'm really excited about what's going to happen there. I think also the culture of Red Hat is exciting. I'm eager to see how that's going to merge between IBM. Granted, they are separate. They're working totally separate day to day. We don't have a lot of interaction, but I have to believe over time, some of their ways of working will trickle off, and maybe some of the ways we work will rub off on them. So I'm really eager to see what's going to happen there. And I think the impact that we will have as a company is only going to grow in the AI space, in the quantum space, cloud space, and blockchain. I think one other item I want to mention is everyone is searching for meaning and impact. And I think IBM is really going to deliver now. I mean, we've been delivering for a while, but I think really it's all coming together as far as delivering impact and meaning and innovating in spaces that people will recognize, and it's going to help people. So I'm excited about that as far as impact and meaning and being a part of that and enjoying the new energy that we have.
That sounds really exciting about Red Hat. We'll have to check that out. What about you personally? So you're the host of a podcast, actually. Tell us a little bit about your podcast. So you host that with Dave, is your co-host. Yes. How did you guys meet?
So Dave Magdalena, we met in college.
Yeah.
We met in college. And so we weren't roommates, but we were pretty close. We lived just a few rooms from each other. And I would say our bond was set when we decided to go winter camping in Vermont. I think it was February. It was basically the coldest time of the year. And we climbed a mountain because we were young, and apparently executive function and frontal lobe command and making a decision is absent. And we just got in a car and drove to a mountain and hiked up it. And there was probably 4 feet, a lot, basically almost a human's amount, almost a normal full-grown man's height of snow, deep snow. And we climbed up there, and we got there at night, and we believed, and I also believe we were correct, we did not believe we could find our way back if we needed to. And it got really, really cold, way below freezing. And we really had to rely on some of the winter survival training we had gotten. I wasn't sure we would make it out of there, but we did. And we definitely got to know each other through the night because we were too cold to sleep. We were talking and just regretting our decisions we had made. And we had a connection, and we kept that connection. Yeah. And he ended up going into banking and having a pretty successful career in banking and working in New York City. And then he started getting involved with design and design sprints and innovation. And we went to Sprint in San Francisco, Sprint 2.0. Kai puts on every year.
Yeah.
And we met there and listened to some amazing speakers and amazing human beings. And he said, well, we need to keep this going. We learned too much. We can't let this die here on the Vine. So we should set up a podcast and have conversations, and we would call it Experiences of Insight.
A favorite episode you want to point people towards there? Any favorite children?
I have to look. But I would say, since I just mentioned Kai.
Yeah.
The Kai podcast is huge. We actually travel. We very rarely travel to interview, to be with humans. But Kai was a special one. Yeah. And so we went out to Google, and I just really like, and I know I mentioned earlier the importance of leading through vulnerability, especially when you don't have to, right? When people are in a position where they don't have to be vulnerable, and actually they have a lot of experience and they're incredibly capable and qualified, but yet they choose to be vulnerable, at least, tell the truth about how they're feeling. And I always felt that Kai, in my opinion, had that really nice balance of zero negative ego, very skillful, artistic, fun, kind, and so to just go on site and have access to her, and I thought was really special.
Get around that. Kai Haley from Google, she's amazing. So back to that, what is next for you? Are we going to see a book from Lee Duncan? How are we going to capture all of this wisdom that we've just heard from you in the last 56 minutes? Are we packaging it up? What's happening?
Maybe. So we're working on some patents for things.
Yeah.
Some, as far as design research, we have a patent we're playing around with. We'll see what happens. IBM is very aggressive in patents. Very aggressive. We are hardcore in patents, so we love patents. We heart them. So I'm working on that, and then I think in a week or so we're going to be talking to IBMers at RTP, Research Triangle Park, that's where I work in North Carolina, USA, about the cyber physical sprint. We're going to be presenting to them, and hopefully we can share that external. Maybe create a book. We've also developed some prototyping cards of how to prototype artificial intelligence of things and IoT, normal stuff. So hopefully we can share that.
That would be amazing. We'll share some of the links of the things that you've mentioned today as well in terms of resources with everyone. One final question. Is there anything that people should be listening to or reading, or anything that's really influenced you in recent times?
Well, I would say stoicism is a huge design. I would refer to it as design stoicism.
Yeah.
If you want to design well, you need to be open to new ideas and understand their perspective and just observe. And when we're designing things, and when that's done, when the work is done, you still need to continue to set your own beliefs aside and opinions and preferences aside. So I would consider that to be design stoicism. So I've been reading a lot of books on how to do that, how to be curious and not be opinionated, and how to behave and how to interact with people. So I think collaborating well, developing sessions and facilitating in a way that brings out the best in people, and to ask provocative questions, to have provocative prompts, to have provocative methods to solve things that need to be solved, to get a fire in your belly for what's important and critical, and match. I would suggest everyone to match the goals and priorities of the organization with something that's also meaningful to society. And design stoicism, I believe, is the way to do that.
Yeah. So good. Don't just wait for the organization to tell you the way that you need to be running things or doing things or what to believe, having that vision yourself. Amazing. Letters from a Stoic. Have you read that one, Seneca?
Yes.
Read that one, yeah.
Yeah, I try to remember the quotes, but some of them, there's so many quotes. I have to say, I have to be careful when I read or listen to it, because it is so nutrient dense that my brain starts hurting and I feel guilty if I'm not writing it down. There's so much there. I'm like, so there has to be, I have to do that at very specific times.
So true. I have like a copy on my desk at all times. It's but yeah, it's heavy stuff, isn't it? It takes a lot just to read one. Lee, this has been absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for your just generous but so clever, so humble answers and wisdom that you've given to everyone this morning. So before they start their working day, we are incredibly grateful. There's just so much to unpick and unpack from all of this. So we're going to try and break it down and get those Leeisms far and wide, get them all out there. Thank you so much. And I hope you, good luck with everything that's coming up. Good luck with the Red Hat acquisition and integration. And we look forward to keeping in touch with you and all the amazing work that you're going to be doing in future years.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Great. Thanks, Lee. We'll chat soon. Bye.